Ingalandia. I help with partnerships and integrations, and I'm here to kick off the Sovryn Community Call, episode 24, September 2nd, 2021. I am going to kick off this call with some hot bars to warm up the room, and Iago is going to give a presentation on what's ahead for the Sovryn project. So keep your microphones on mute, as he said earlier, and just enjoy the intro. Okay. Here goes. One second. Okay. Fresh off success from the Babelfish sale, Sovryn Origins bringing crazy stats without fail, sold out in 30 minutes, got the funding locked in, got more sales in our pocket with no sign of stopping, upgraded the AMMs and gave the bridges some polish. Bitcoin and Sovryn are like Batman and Robin, decentralized Gotham, build and ignore the nonsense, stay sovereign whether you're an OG or a novice. Apex predator of the metaverse, been a while since Ingalandia Zetaverse, regulations coming and it's gonna get hella worse. Bitcoin DeFi, now it's time to put our heads to work. Dig the new landing page, shout out to Zoo and them, making our protocol look and feel intuitive. We're just getting started, no time for relaxing. Got some updates on the project, now it's time to get cracking. Okay, welcome to the community call, everyone. Hope you enjoyed all that. Thanks for joining us and sharing in this mission. The rules are, if you'd like to speak, just toggle your mute and wait patiently. Before we start with Iago and his presentation, would anyone here like to say hello? Okay, well let's get Iago on stage with his presentation. Let's get cracking.
Thanks, Inglandia. Bitcoin and Sovryn like Batman and Robin. Somebody fucking tweet that so I can retweet it. That's awesome. All right. So I just realized now that you put that it's community meeting number 24, that means that we started our community meetings exactly a year ago, I think, or 12 months ago, almost exactly a year ago. We should check. And if we figure out the right one, then we should do a community call where we sort of talk about all the stuff that we've done over the last insane year. But ain't nobody got time for that right now because we have a very big month coming up. So Sovryns September, I think, is going to be a very, very substantial September. There is a huge amount of things planned. So we have continued improvements to staking. We have adding SOV as collateral to the lending pools. We have the launch of the expected launch of Origins as the first version, the first example of a sub-protocol and the introduction of the OG token. Potentially the launch of the Zero token just in advance of the Zero sub-protocol. And we have exchange listings, as well as a whole bunch of other things which I will discuss. Before I get into a description of what all of these things are, I'd like to make some notes about roadmap and transparency. I think we've been struggling a little bit figuring out how do we publish one of those really beautiful roadmaps that all of these other
Hey
guys, please mute.
Audit process isn't perfect, and it's really
so how all of these projects like Cardano or whatever, and they all have these beautiful roadmaps of all of the shit that they're going to do. We don't publish roadmaps like that, and the reason we don't publish roadmaps like that is because it's a community-driven project. Everything requires a SIP, and so there's really nobody who can say, okay, we're going to be doing this, and then we're going to be doing this, and then we're going to be doing this. We don't have a Vitalik. We don't have a Charles Hoskinson. And so at the same time, I think it's really important for us to have a sense of where we're going. And so the compromise that we're going to be trying is that we're going to be, for the month of September, putting out what we believe is a roadmap, But you need to recognize that this roadmap is driven by you guys and the rest of the community. It's driven by SIPs, and so it is liable to change. This is a roadmap under the assumption that the SIPs get passed. The second thing is there are a bunch of things that we aren't able to put onto our roadmap because external partners are going to be making their own announcements. Centralized projects make their own announcements. We can't announce things for them, or we have no control over them. And so, for example, exchange listings, that is the case there. And so, for both of those reasons, and also because this is an extremely ambitious roadmap, it may not happen exactly as we expect. It may not happen exactly as described. But this is our best effort to try and get everyone onto the same page. Before I go into the roadmap itself, there's also two things that we need to discuss around them. The first is the exchange listings that I mentioned. So we know now that there are several exchanges that are planning on listing SOV, and I'm talking about centralized exchanges, that are planning on listing SOV this month. This includes, but is not limited to, strategic partners who made investments in previous rounds, made investments in SOV, including those who participated in the strategic round led by Pump. I think this is great timing because it's going to potentially open Sovryn up to an entirely new set of audiences. Right now, if you want to engage with Sovryn, or if you want to acquire SOV, the only way to do it is to surmount the very high user frictions and learning curve of figuring out how to use Sovryn, which means that we have purposefully, in a way, limited the number of people who are able to have access to SOV, have access to Sovryn, as we were continuing to test and improve. I think the system has proven to be extremely robust. The UI has continued to improve. It's now much, much easier. But even so, this sort of bypasses that entire thing because centralized exchanges are things that people are very, very familiar with. And so this will be a really, really easy way for people who are aware of Sovryn to participate and get involved with SOV. But it's also going to substantially boost awareness because these exchanges are planning their own marketing campaigns. They are going to be letting their communities know, but at the same time, things like this mean that this whole project is going to get more visibility. It's going to be on CoinGecko and CoinMarketCap more. There's going to be more buzz around it, and so we can expect a higher degree of awareness. This will also connect SOV with the wider crypto market. SOV has been kind of like Bitcoin in the early days, right? Bitcoin's price was highly volatile, was disconnected from everything entirely. And SOV has been the same way. Its price has not been connected to anything else, including the wider crypto market. Once SOV is on exchanges, that's going to change. And one of the ways it will change is that SOV is now probably going to be much more correlated with the wider market, and that probably over the course of the short term, and certainly over the course of the long term, is going to be of benefit to SOV and to the Sovryn project. Now, there's probably going to be people who are going to try and front run this. I would expect that we will be seeing, Telegram communities or groups that are associated with these exchanges probably announce. And so we might see some people trying to acquire SOV before it is listed. And so I think it's also important that the Sovryn community know about this first, because if anyone's going to front run ourselves, it should be us. So that's on the exchanges. With regards to the sub-protocols, what the hell am I talking about? What are sub-protocols? So those of you who have read the black paper, and that's probably most of you on this call, know that we have been thinking about and developing Sovryn as an operating system. What does that mean? It means that this is not designed to be a dApp. Already, if it was a dApp, it would be the most feature-rich dApp anywhere. It just does more things and more and covers more ground more completely than any other debt, right? It's got trading, lending, borrowing, an AMM, an origins platform, etc., etc., etc. We expect this to continue to grow and to scale. And what we need to do is generate a system which has the ability to grow and scale, while at the same time maintaining a unified ecosystem and as much as possible an easy unified user experience. But most importantly, which will have a unified community and set of culture, principles, and governance. And so core to that is the Bitocracy system that we have developed, and the use of SOV as a coordination token. So in the forums recently, John Light posted some thoughts on how this could work. And his thoughts were reflective of conversations that have been happening amongst core members of the team and some others around what this would look like. One of the things that you can't have in a Bitocracy is a situation where, as more and more systems are added, every single thing that happens in the entire universe that is Sovryn requires a vote of the Bitocracy. It's just too many votes for one single system. And so what you want to do is you want to have localized governance. Localized governance is always more effective, more educated, more efficient, usually better for the participants than sort of monolithic massive governance. If you think about the difference between your ability to influence a PTA or some community, small community that you're involved in, versus your ability to impact anything sort of happening on a national scale, you can see the advantage of unified governance. So the idea around subprotocols is that subprotocols will have their own sub-Bitocracy system, and they will be tied to the Sovryn protocol by having the Bitocracy able to make sure that they don't introduce systemic risk. So the highest level of Bitocracy, SOV Bitocracy, would be able to overrule or stop those protocols under certain circumstances. And at the same time, these protocols would have their own token. And this token would be generated through SOV. So how would that work? Well, I will use an example of Origins. Origins, one of the goals of Origins is to create the best launchpad in the world. And one of the advantages of this launchpad is that it will be vetted by the community. So it will be self-regulating. And so we've already had a few examples where, for example, Babelfish or Mintlayer or some other projects have come to the Bitocracy and asked, can we launch on Origins, please? And that requires all of us to look into those projects and vote. It would be much better if there was a way for those sorts of decisions to be made by the people who are most interested in that type of activity. To generate that, the current plan is to attempt an experiment. Now, this may work very well, it might not. If it works great, perfect. Then we will take that learning and use the same model again and again for other sub-protocols. So, for example, Zero would potentially become a sub-protocol, the Sovryn Mint would potentially become a sub-protocol, and there's, NFT system would become a sub-protocol, etc. If it doesn't work, we will learn from it and revise. So what would that look like? It would look like people would be able to utilize SOV, in other words, place SOV into a bonding curve. And by placing SOV into a bonding curve, they'd be able to generate the OG token, or in this case, that's what we're calling the Origins token. Generate an OG token. Now you can stake that OG token into the Origins subprotocol. This means that as Origins becomes more valuable, more popular, drives more revenue, there's more demand on SOV. as there is more demand on the SOV ecosystem and the Sovryn ecosystem grows, the price of OG token rises with it because they are paired. And the goal is ultimately also to allow OG token holders to effectively treat origins as a delegate to the highest level of autocracy, the SOV autocracy, such that we actually end up decentralizing this entire ecosystem. So it remains unified, but at the same time decentralized. So you have a whole bunch of sub-protocols. Through their specific tokens, people vote, and those votes they go up to the highest level of autocracy. And this is something that no one's tried before. No one has tried to create a unified, decentralized form of governance with multiple different protocols. This, I think, is the future. I think it's a huge win for Sovryn, and will be reflective of the fact that we're trying to build strong decentralized governance and operating system for sovereigns that will last for decades. And so this is going to be our first foray into that. So we expect that we will be able to, and we'll be working towards this. We may slip because there's a lot of work, but have that first sale, which will be open to SOV stakers and allow them to be the first to participate in this new OG token and this new model in this coming month. And before I get into the roadmap, maybe I will pause because I think that was a mouthful, and check if anyone would like to ask questions about either of the things that I've just discussed.
Yeah, Yago, do you have an estimated time frame of when we'd see the first sub protocol so we can kind of start battle testing it?
Yes. So what you'll see, right, is going to be very, very similar to Batocracy from a governance perspective. It's effectively going to be a fork of Batocracy, and what we expect is on the staking and voting pages, you have a drop-down menu which will allow you to participate. Now, we'll probably do the OG we'll allow people to get their OG tokens somewhat in advance of this being developed. And that will allow that community, as it is developed, to already have their tokens and to begin participating. And until then, governance will continue to happen through the Batocracy, as you guys are familiar with. Well, that's a good question. I think also these are two big topics, and it's probably going to make sense for us to have like AMA calls or something like that on each of them. And so we'll be looking to organize something like that maybe this weekend or next week. Any other questions? Oh,
hey,
please announce yourself. Okay, thanks, Whipper. Yeah.
I'm just curious. Everything that you just discussed, is this now becoming the top priority over things that we discussed prior, like adding limit orders to our trading desk or our layer 2 solution? I know that Arbitrum just launched. I was curious whether or not, now that they just launched, if we are able to scale. I'm just curious where all this lines up in terms of the priority ladder.
Okay, so no, this does not change those priorities. In fact, the limit orders you'll see in the roadmap are expected this month. With regards to the scaling tech in the way that we would like to see it is not yet mature. Even Arbitrum supposedly is on mainnet, but is not truly on mainnet. It's not, certainly not it's like in a very controlled release right now. And I think it's also become clear to us that zero knowledge proofs are a far better way of generating a rollup. So no, I don't think that has impacted those other things that you described. But of course, this does impact how we are thinking about the project. It was always the goal to create a scalable operating system, and to an extent, we are learning as we are going how best to create that. I think I'll allow for 2 more short questions before continuing. All right, awesome. No other questions? Then I will continue.
Yago, you're muted, just in case you're speaking.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was waiting for any additional questions, but I will now share my screen. Okay, so this is our proposed roadmap for the month of September. And again, two caveats. One, a lot of this is SIPs, so this could change over the course of the month. And also, the order here is not set in stone. This is our best estimate. And then finally, we will be looking to accomplish all of this. But of course, it is a very ambitious project to accomplish all of these things. And so we will see if we accomplish 80%, 90%, 100%, or 120%. All right, so we're here. We're in the community call. Tomorrow we expect to have, after having us backed in debate for a while now and reviewed by a bunch of by different people, the SOV as collateral for borrowing SIP will be published. What this will mean is that SOV will become allowable if the SIP passes as a form of collateral. You'll be able to borrow against your SOV, and it will also mean that margin trading will become available for SOV. However, at this point, because of the way the system is constructed, you have only the ability to do margin long on SOV with a SIP allowing collateral for borrowing. To allow for margin short on SOV, we'd need to introduce a different SIP which would allow SOV for lending. And so that is something which we as a community can decide to do at a future point. At this point, it will only be the ability to borrow against your SOV or to go long with the margin trading system, not short. And then, of course, there'll be a vote on this. And once that happens, the borrowing will be introduced, and shortly afterwards, margin long will be introduced. We also expect on Monday to have an increased loot drop for SOV RBTC to increase the liquidity in that pool. This will also help in light of what we expect are going to be higher transaction volumes in the coming weeks. And then Tsu will discuss this further, but there's a big bundle update release coming of front-end improvements. So this is SIP A, the vote end, and its execution. We then have a second SIP, which we're currently referring to here as SIP B, and this is about concentrating revenue with liquid stakers. Right now, as I'm sure you guys are aware, the revenue that the system generates is distributed across all stakers, including vested stakers. This dilutes the liquid stakers, and so to reconcentrate the revenue in the system, which has already been quite significant, and will become more significant with SIP C, we will be looking to concentrate liquidity in stakers. And I expect that this SIP may be published as soon as next week. With that SIP, we'll also be publishing the SIP here described as SIP C, which is AMM fees for liquid stakers. What that means is that currently there's a 0.3% fee on AMM trades. The proposal and a great analysis was done by David Soroy, around the ability for this to generate significant revenue for SOV stakers if we have a split where 0.25% will continue to go to liquidity providers and 0.05% will go to SOV stakers. And so these two SIPs in combination will substantially change the economics of SOV staking. And then when you add that with the advantages that have already been introduced, including the SOV rewards and additional rewards like the ability to participate in pre-sales and airdrops, SOV staking is just getting more and more attractive. A landing page update is then planned, which will update our current landing page at sovryn.app. That's sort of like what you would think of as the Sovryn website. We'll then have, this will be 2 weeks. We'll have our community call, and you guys will be able to see how many of these things actually happened. And shortly afterwards, we expect the SOV margin long to be implemented, which will allow margin long trading on SOV as well. And if this goes well, we can look to introduce the same thing for other tokens, and in particular, the fish token. Now, what we're getting to here is the Origins token sale. This is what I was describing earlier on, is a effort to take Origins and use it as our first example of a sub-token, which can be governed by itself, has some governance rights, and this may take some while to implement through the delegate system into the SOV Botocracy, and where the SOV Botocracy will continue to have some governance rights on the OG token. So effectively, it remains the same protocol, but this becomes a self-governed sub-protocol. And then we expect to have these SIPs voting end and having them introduced. We then have another big bundle of front-end releases. This will include improvements to trading view and limit orders. And then depending on how things go with the Origins token sale, we may also, in the month of September, see the zero token sale in advance of the introduction of zero interest loans that will be provided through the zero system, which we've discussed a few times on these calls. All right, so that is the roadmap. There are also a bunch of things that don't appear on the roadmap, which I will describe now. Those things include a number of wallet integrations. Decent and Maths Wallet are going to be integrating and will become available through the front end. Transact are looking to support direct RBTC purchases from fiat. We expect to be integrating a fiat off-ramp as well, so you'll be able to move your stablecoins or your Bitcoin off of the system directly into fiat. This is currently being tested. There's also the work that we've been moving forward on around Lightning Network integration, and so there's going to be we're going to be funding a team that came out of the Sovrython to continue work on that. All right, so quite a lot of things that we expect to be happening over the course of the month of September. I think there's time for maybe 1 or 2 questions, and then we can move on to dev updates.
Hey, Yago, it's Whipper. Can vested SOV be used to borrow against?
No. There are a number of reasons, but the primary reason is the design of the system. So proof of stake has a strong potential for corruption, we believe. It basically makes the rich get richer, and it creates basically a elite of landlords who extract rent from everyone else by staking. And it also has a very strong pull to economies of scale. So it's much better to be a big staker than a small staker. If Bitocracy was built as a pure proof of stake system in a way that other projects build proof of stake systems, we would have the same kind of problem. And so if you look at that in comparison to proof of work, instead of you just getting richer and your coins making more money, you actually have to burn money to participate in proof of work. Right? It's a proof of burn. It's you're a simple, humble factory worker or farmer. You're not a landlord, and that's because you're putting capital at risk. What we've chosen to do, and the way we've designed the Bitocracy governance, is to create a real economic cost to being a sovereign staker, to being an SOV staker, and that is that you introduce those tokens into the Bitocracy, you can't do anything else with them. There's no way you can create a derivative and go borrow against that. There may be ways to redesign this in the future, but it is a significant risk in the long term. In the short term, it would be awesome. It would be like we would all be on crack, and we'd be like, it would be fantastic, and you'd be able to make money, you stake, but it doesn't cost you anything. It would be perfect, right? But we're not building this project for the next month. We're building this project for the next 2 generations. And so the answer, bottom line, is unless we find a good way of doing it, no.
Yago, can you clarify what you expect the fee to be on the swaps in the SIP that would pass? I kind of am hearing some conflicting percentages. Like, how much out of that 0.3% swaps, in theory, is going to go into the SIP?
0.25 would continue to go to liquidity providers. 0.05 or 15% of the total would go to SOV stakers.
Okay.
But, again, this is subject to debate, could change. This is why we publish SIPs. All right. Englandia, I'm handing it back to you.
So, yeah, I don't believe that Aurora or Solbit are available to give the development updates. I don't know if anyone from the dev side wants to step up for that. Otherwise, I'm going to pass it on to Zoo to share a bit on design updates. And I think that might be it in terms of updates, and we can have general Q&A after.
I'll do an adoption update as well after Sue.
Okay, cool.
Hey guys, how's it going? So basically, last week I actually took a holiday, so I managed to get some sleep finally. But come back and back on it. So the update for this community call is so Jago just told you about the update that's coming next week. So in this update, we have improved slippage control for margin trading. So hopefully that will solve a lot of the issues that people have been telling us about. We will also be adding the finally integrating the Babelfish aggregator into Sovryn. So that's kind of huge stuff. The release of the token went really well last week. And next week we'll be releasing the actual aggregator. Along with that, we'll also be bringing the bridge into the DApp so that you don't have to disconnect your wallet and reconnect your wallet. So from inside the portfolio page, there'll be 2 buttons, deposit and withdrawal, and you'll be able to bring in your ETH and your BNB or send it out to either chain. We have started working on the new trading interfaces and working on the limit orders. So far that's all going well. There doesn't seem to be any crazy things crop up yet. So hopefully that's all gonna come out on the timeline that. Hello? Yo, do you want to stop? Is everyone on mute?
No, we can hear you.
Okay, cool. Sorry, where was I? Yeah, limit orders. So along with that, you're gonna get a revised swap interface.
Everyone, please mute yourself if you're unmuted. Otherwise, I will have to mute you. And if I mute you, you cannot unmute yourself.
KCIO, can you please mute? Thanks.
Cool. So yeah, you'll get a revised swap interface that will have more data in there for you, and the margin trade interface, along with all of the 3 trading interfaces will now have much better selectors. So you'll be able to select your pair much more intuitively, much more like a centralized exchange. So that should make the experience much easier and make it also something you're more used to using. We have been also, I've been telling you for the last couple of community calls that, you know, there's a lot of like background work that's going on with like working on overall improvements on the front end code. So we've been implementing all the new Tailwind CSS and starting on adding the components into the storybook. That's been like headed by front end guy Shin. He's been doing a great job on that. And that's going to help us with the vision that Yago was talking about with all these sub protocols. We're essentially trying to make a kind of Lego kind of brick front end so that all these other teams can easily integrate and work with us and end up with a consistent user experience for you guys. Overall, like I said, I was away last week, but from the feedback we've got, overall the Origins interface was working for the sale. There's a few slight improvements that we would wish to make after gathering user feedback on that. So they should be in place by the time we do the next sale, hopefully. The reward page that I've been telling you about, unfortunately, we came across some issues with the data in the history, and we want to make sure we're showing you the right thing. So we're delving into that and digging that out. But we expect to have that sorted by next week. Other than that, we've been working on 0, so that's in progress. So hopefully soon after all the exchange listings, we will be able to launch that. Other than that, in terms of more of the creative side, we're just working on creating graphical timelines like the one you just saw, so that we can easily let you guys know where we're at and what we're doing and what's coming. I think that's everything from my side.
Cool. Let's kick it over to Exiled Surfer.
Hey everybody. So you've heard me talking in the last couple of community calls about rebuilding the adoption team, and as part of that process, we have now a marketing lead named Malvarosa, and I'd like to give him a chance to introduce himself, where he came from, and why he's here.
Hey everyone, Malvarosa here. So thanks for the introduction, Exiled. I've been working in traditional finance for the last 7 years as head of marketing for a retail banking platform. So going through all the nightmares firsthand. So if you don't work in traditional finance, you cannot even imagine how difficult it is even to launch apps or connect to payment gateways. So I've lived that for 7 years, and I've been down the rabbit hole for over 2. Reading the Bitcoin standards changed my life, changed my whole perspective on what it is to be free and sovereign. And so I've been eagerly following you guys for a while, and I just happened to bump into Online Exile and Yago and had a chat and say, look, there might be a position for me here to come in and contribute and bring this platform forward. So I'm delighted to be on board. This is my first week. I'm just trying to get my head around everything and get to know people in the team and the community, and really trying to contribute and talk to you guys and listen to the community and see, hear the feedback and move forward and just make this as much a success as I know it can be. So great to be here, and just looking forward to getting stuck in. Loads to do behind the scenes, guys. There's so much going on. So so exciting. So nice to meet you all, and hope to meet you all over the next coming weeks, months, years in all the chat rooms and all Discord channels, etc. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Malvarosa. So as part of rebuilding adoption, we've seen a lot of chatter, a lot of salt and chatter, almost to the level of FUD in Telegram groups about why no marketing for Sovryn. And well, up until now, the growth's been very, very organic, and we've been happy with that approach and not being part of the overall market being this secret little project. But we've now engaged 3 external agencies that will be supporting Malvarosa and the internal team. We have a PR agency that is going to be working on us for earned content, which means that they're pushing out our messaging across media channels and getting those channels to write about us by virtue of the strength of the project, which means not paid content. They've worked with many large projects that are well known in the space. We're looking forward to see how they perform this month. We have a second guerrilla marketing agency, which will be then in wider present, pushing out the same messaging that we're developing for the month of September and then moving forward. That will be very present as community members across social media channels and amplifying our content so that we're picking up the awareness and getting that out across a wider group of people. And the third agency we've been speaking about in the past, Function Labs in New York, is now working together with us on developing new content, messaging, our strategy, building out the affiliates program. And so they've started work also last week. And the first piece of their work will be the new landing page that Sue mentioned, which will be consistent with the front page, the landing page identity of the DApp. So we've been spending a lot of time over the last 2 weeks optimizing the messaging. And so the first piece of the work that you'll see from them will be that. We're also now going to be working together with a company called The Tie, which is very interesting. It's a Bloomberg level terminal for crypto sentiment analysis. It was born out of the traditional banking sector and has a terminal for institutional investors, and they have a new product which they are offering to crypto projects, which gives us essentially access to the Twitter fire hose, the YouTube fire hose, TikTok fire hose. So they're basically linked into all of the social media channels and have granular search terms about not only our own project, but about all influencers, about all of our competitors, which we can start using to be doing more data-driven analysis for the decisions that we're making and when we're launching projects, and also the messaging that we're doing. So that's really exciting. We've closed all of those negotiations and started working with those teams in synchronous with Malvarosa coming on. And I think the biggest thing that it is that I have to announce is you guys all know John Light as being our governance guru. John Light has now moved up to be our product lead. And this is in synchronization with the process optimizations that we've been telling you about for the last month, that we've moved over to a project management tool. The teams have been working, and documenting our SIPs and specifying our products more together. And John has stepped up to be leading the head of product. And what it is that we're looking to do over the course of the next month is to be bringing adoption and product more in sync with each other so that we can start, how it is that we're building these things and testing our hypotheses, that we're doing much more A/B testing, much more user information, traditional UI, UX research. And so that by the time that we get to actually launching our products, our language is totally refined, and we've had the time and the space and the planning to be able to be doing much more concentrating marketing over the next quarter. So that's what's going on inside of adoption. Also, you guys have noticed that at the end of the month, we'll be in Prague, HCPP, at the Crypto Anarchist Hackers Conference that happens every year in Prague. And the last thing I'd like to talk about is Fish token launch and the discrepancy in the distribution. So I woke up this morning and discovered across our channels that there was a discrepancy. So reached out to the team that had deployed the contracts, spoke with them and made them aware of the issues. They looked into it, and I've posted twice on the forum the status of that. There's going to be a script now that is running to do an analysis of the snapshots and see where it is that the mistakes became evident, what they exactly are, and once they've triaged that, then they will determine the actual methodology of rectifying the token distribution for the airdrops. So I really appreciate the active community members that pointed that out last night and this morning, and also in your patience with us while it is that we look into the issue. I'd like to take a moment to talk about general sentiment in the community, in crypto communities, so to speak, that Yago touched on our last community call, and that's this sort of like zeitgeist that we live in that is, so much distrust. We have so much distrust in our institutions. We have so much distrust in, rug pulls and hacks. And just the general sentiment is that there's always something wrong. And I'd just like to say that, working with this team, if you want to say inside it, because I'm part of the contributor team and party to our daily work, still, a community member, I've really never seen a team that is so dedicated to integrity and to doing things properly and right. And so if you see me in the channels being a little bit short and testy about these things, it's because this general sentiment of distrust that is like I said, it's a zeitgeist. It's sort of like a thorn in my side. But I just want to assure everybody that if you're not hearing from us, it doesn't mean that we're not listening or we're not watching. It just means that we're have a huge workload that we're doing, and be rest assured that we pay attention to everything and we deliver what we promise. And if something's wrong, we correct it. And a lot of the times, those watchful eyes in our community point out things to us that we didn't notice. And also, I'd request that you remember that we're also just a group of humans working long hours, and we make mistakes. And we learn along the way, and we correct them, and we're looking to build Sovryn into the best possible platform that it can be for DeFi on Bitcoin.
Excellent. I'd add to that. So I want to, if anyone was disappointed in the fact that they didn't get exactly the right number of fish tokens, I want to point out that this isn't really the Babelfish's team's fault. They were they needed to work with the SOV bitocracy system that we built, and we built it to make it very, very hard to work with for doing things like this. That wasn't the goal, it was the result. The goal was to make it very, very difficult to have other parties come and build a system which would allow for someone to go and create a derivative of tokens that are held in the bitocracy. And this is exactly for the reason that I mentioned in my response to Whipper a moment ago, right? We don't want people to easily be able to go and create like a wrapped SOV so that, you can just put your SOV in staking, and now you go and you start trading your wrapped SOV, and it's like you didn't actually do anything. There needs to be an economic cost. There needs to be skin in the game, or you don't get good governance. And so we've built it kind of like a nuclear facility where it's very, very difficult to touch anything or get direct access to anything. And the poor Babelfish guys were trying as hard as they could to work with that system at the same time as we were very, very, busy. And so maybe didn't give them as much help as they could. And so they are working in absolute good faith. They have really, really strong devs. Dark Matter in particular is a fucking killer. And they managed to figure out a way to do the airdrop, and there was just one little oversight because we made the damn thing like Fort Knox. And I think with that, we'll hand it back to you, Englandia.
All right, awesome. So I have a couple of quick updates. Transact will be adding fiat to RBTC, I think within a week or two, and soon after fiat to SOV. And maybe sometime next week, you'll be seeing a button for just purchasing RBTC, which powers all the transactions in the system, as you know. More visible on the landing page. I'm working on setting up a Bitcoin DeFi conference and speaking with an events partner today about potentially working with them to run that. This conference would focus on the emergence of Bitcoin DeFi as a serious contender in the space, which will involve a lot of Bitcoin influencers, a lot of Bitcoin startup founders, not just building on RSK, but building on things like RGB, DLC, other chains even like Blockstack. So we just want to pull all these people together and have all the fireside chats and like where this space can go, and I think that'll be really exciting. I'm working with a few candidates for the next Origin sale. A lot of it involves sorting out the economics and compliance for them, because a lot of them aren't like as distributed as we are. So the process is slow, but hot off of the success of Babelfish sale, we immediately want to start preparing for the next sale. That's more or less all I can share at the moment. We have 8 minutes left. I would like to open up the floor for anyone here who would like to bring up a question or share something.
Hey guys, the Zero token, is that going to be an Origin sale? Is that going to be a potential airdrop for stakers? Like, I know we've kind of been highly anticipating that, but I don't think it was specifically mentioned as a product of Origins.
So we expect that will launch on Origins as well. There may also be an airdrop associated with it to SOV stakers or something like that. Part of the Zero tokens are intended to go to SOV stakers, but probably not as an airdrop. As you guys can see, airdrops are problematic. We've, like I said, purposefully built the system in ways in which makes certain kinds of cheap tricks difficult with it. So instead, it's going to be Zero tokens that are distributed to SOV stakers as part of what they earn by staking SOV over the course of time based on their stake weight. I think every single project which is going to be launching is probably, or most projects are going to launch through Origins, whether or not there are sub-protocols, third parties that are very, very closely related to us, or projects that are looking to build for the Bitcoin ecosystem, like Bitcoin miners, Mint Layer, and other projects that are looking to launch on Origins, take advantage of the fact that they're now smart contract systems and a DeFi system for Bitcoin.
Got it. So just to clarify there, you're saying it's kind of like moving forward, the expected model is not going to be airdrops, but almost just like a bi-weekly yield, kind of like what we have for SIP24. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. That's the primary reason we didn't do that with Babelfish was because we felt it was important to reward people who had been staking previously. And I think one of the things that has happened is a lot of people have been staking, but the whole reward system hasn't been fully fleshed out. Now it is much more fleshed out, and what we're looking to do is have systems which are fully decentralized. Airdrops aren't fully decentralized, and so the things should work through the Sovryn protocol.
Thanks.
I saw Andreas from Mint Layers here, and you unmuted yourself. Would you like to speak? Hey there, if you're speaking, we can't hear you.
Hey guys, how are you doing?
We're doing well.
Yeah, so no, I was just wanted to participate in this call, and I'm glad that Jago mentioned us, because we are actually going to be submitting a new SIP very soon for our fair sale and also our public sale. Just to give you a sneak preview, we would like to give the Sovryn community a chance to get in at the same terms as our VCs, so the same price and investing conditions as the VCs got. and yeah, we'd like to offer that just to SOV stakers and do that sometime just a couple days before our testnet comes out, which is going to be later this autumn. And yeah, just letting you know, heads up, keep an eye out for our upcoming SIP. I think you'll like it.
Thank you very much, Andreas. Thanks for the update. All right, we have 5 minutes left. Would anyone like to share some questions?
Hey, what about RBTC peg out? Any updates?
Yeah, so that's something we're working on. It's extremely delicate work to make sure that it is decentralized enough, to make sure that there isn't a honeypot of Bitcoin that can be stolen by anyone. As you guys know, there is much limited scripting capabilities on the Bitcoin side. And so that means that the funds will have to be held in some kind of multisig, and building out that multisig to be secure and to be able to read what is happening on the rootstock chain so that it can do the pegouts on an automated basis is very, very delicate work. And our philosophy of development here is measure twice, cut once, and then test. So it's probably going to be several weeks still before we have it on testnet. And then it will be a few more weeks before it is live. But it is a very, very big priority of what we're working on. We have very, very talented devs working on
it. One more question. Can you explain with numbers about that origin sale? Like some numbers you can give so that we can visualize something also.
No, I cannot yet, but we will. There's a team that is going to be working on the Origins project. I've been working already on the Origins project, and they're working hard to put all the pieces together so that they can present that to the community. And I expect they will shortly be looking to present that to the community, and we'll probably have a call about it.
Thank you.
Speaking of RBTC, I was wondering about the sex listings. You mentioned SOV will be listed. Do you know if they'll have RBTC listed? Either, are there RBTC plans so that if people get SOV and they decide to transfer it to RSK, they also have a direct source for RBTC?
So some of those exchanges do. Maybe all of them that I've heard of. But to be honest, I'm not sure because I haven't checked. Broadly speaking, I personally am not a fan of trying to get exchanges to list RBTC because it sort of creates the illusion that RBTC is somehow a separate token and should be thought of as a separate token which trades at a separate price from BTC. I think the right way to do it is for them to connect to something like Fast BTC and allow people to withdraw their BTC directly into RBTC, and that's what we have been working to encourage.
Got it, thanks.
So are the listed tokens going to be RRC20 or ERC20 on the sexes?
Armando, do you want to respond to that? I don't know how much information we have.
Armando, are you there?
I can see him online. Maybe. Anyway, so again,
I can answer that question. So the exchanges will be listing the RSK native SOV, and some of them might or might not also be listing the RC20 Ethereum version or the BSC version. Not clear on that.
So they won't be listing it as a separate token. What they will be doing is allowing you basically to deposit or withdraw to any chain that you want, but the default will be, if they do allow that, the default will remain RSK, rootstock.
Correct.
Okay, so we have reached the hour. I would like to close this out, but if you'd like to hang, feel free to do so. I just want to thank everyone for joining on this and being a part of our mission to carve out a trail for Bitcoin secured financial sovereignty, dismantling what people know and understand about money, help us spread the word, and create more sovereign individuals. So the community call is now over. I will stop recording, but feel free to hang out if you got more questions. I'll be lingering. I'm sure some of us on the team will be lingering as well. Thanks, everyone. Stay sovereign.
Stay sovereign.
Yeah, I'll have a bunch more questions if any of the team members want to stick around. That'd be great.
I'm
Yeah, I
hanging.
think